Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Comix Rant Mini. I am your host, Arvin Bautista. And in this episode, we are going to talk about Zatanna Bring Down the House #1 by Mariko Tamaki and Javier Rodriguez. This is a Black Label book from DC. I am a DC fan. And I have been enjoying these Black Label offerings where it's usually a limited run of books. And it takes a character, but it doesn't have to be confined into continuity. I'm old. I can't read 40 million books to try to keep up with what's going on with the X-Men or whatever, right? I can't. So these kind of make sense to me. They're usually, so this one's this $5.99 book, so $6. A little more costly than the usual comic book, but I find the Black Label books kind of justify it a little better. So I think for this book, it's a regular size book, but it has 30 to 32 pages, I believe. So kind of almost twice the size of a regular, how much are they going for now? $3.99 or $4.99 book. And I believe because I got the Art Germ variant, I'm a sucker for Art Germ stuff. I mean, who isn't? I think I paid an extra $1, and I'm kind of that guy. Like, I can pay an extra $1 for variant covers, especially if it's something that I really enjoy. I like this book. This is the first issue. I like this book. I like the work of these two creators. Javier Rodriguez, I believe, was primarily on Marvel doing their stuff, and I kind of like his take here. His stuff reminds me a lot of the simple, elegant, but also expressive styles that have been, I think I've seen it. I remember Marcos Martin does it, Cliff Chang, and I'm blanking out. Who's the other? Javier Pulido. And I really like that aesthetic, that style, that thinking, even the way the storytelling is going. I think, was it Aha on Daredevil? There's like traces of it where it's, I'm not saying this guy's, I'm not saying that Javier Rodriguez is aping all these guys. It's just this line of thinking and storytelling that I really appreciate. And you can kind of see as I flip through these. I like these faces. There's, as we get into it, and then there's like certain things that are done. So she walks through like this casino, and Rodriguez picks, little snapshots of the faces of these people, which is kind of cool, from a mirror side. So she's looking at Zatanna walk by, this guy's looking that way, and he's flipped over, but it's kind of cool. Like, it adds a lot of atmosphere to the environment that she's walking through. And then these faces are cool. Very distinct. Simple, but a lot of character. Zatanna looks great in this panel. And it's not overly detailed, but obviously detailed enough. And a lot of composition going on here. So here's a splash page. Or sorry, a 2-page spread. That's cool. It's, she starts her magic show, and it kind of, Rodriguez allows himself to kind of be a little bit more free with how it's composed and also how the story is being told. With Tamaki, I believe, is also an artist, so she can kind of visualize some of these things as she's doing like these cuts on Zatanna's. This is a pretty funny panel. I don't think I noticed this while I was reading, but that's this shape because she is also separated into pieces. The story is basically Zatanna year 1, I would say. And I like the character Zatanna. I don't know why. There's not a lot of, I don't know what the phrase I'm looking for is, but it's not like, she's not like as crazy iconic as, like, say, Wonder Woman or Superman, Batman. I think that's fine. But there's something about her that I've always liked. Maybe it's the fishnets. I'm not sure, but it's the character is just cool. And then I think maybe it's recent where they started exploring her history with her father being a magician as well. It's in almost every Zatanna story that you could get your hands on. There's been a few young adult novels, and my daughter actually read some of them. And even in Young Justice and maybe even Teen Titans, they always allude to this, her origin. She should have more stories aside from her origin, but her origin is pretty cool, where she feels responsible for her father disappearing, who is Zatara, which is a real character from back in the day, I believe. That's kind of like Mandrake. He looks like Mandrake, the magician. That's why Zatanna kind of looks like this. And the book ends on a cliffhanger. Sorry, spoilers are abound on this channel, but I don't really go through the story with it. I'm just really browsing through it. So this will kind of be like what you would do if you were in a comic book store. And this is kind of like what attracted me to it. And I actually had to look up Rodriguez's past work because it did remind me of those other artists that I have mentioned, right? Like Pulido and Marcos Martin, Cliff Chang. They don't look like each other. There's certain aspects of it that are kind of familiar. But it is, again, like I said, the aesthetic. But he's done a Superman short story in The Brave and the Bold recently. And I liked the first chapter of that. I read the second and I did not like it too much. But I liked the first chapter of that. I think he caught like Superman in a bottle, like almost perfectly. And it was Superman and Lois, I believe. But anyway, let's get back to Zatanna. And it has certain things. Tamaki sets it up really, really good, I think, in this first issue. She's got it down. She's, definitely an accomplished graphic novelist, and she has been writing all sorts of DC books, I believe. She may have written some Marvel books too, but the DC stuff is the stuff I'm aware of, and I've always enjoyed them. I think she did like a Supergirl one too, where she just captures the voices of those characters perfectly, I guess is the easy word to say, but I would like to say distinctively and relatably. Is that a word? Like you can relate to these characters the way that she writes them, and she always pairs up with some great artists. And Zatanna, the way that they play out this story is no different. So it's, Dale in life, and she seems to kind of, that was always something that I thought of. Like she was always just like this magician, but she would choose not to really do magic or like, magic in the DC universe kind of magic. And that was always interesting, but I didn't quite understand why. And it looks like that's what they're kind of going to try to hit in this series. I am unfortunately not going to buy the rest of the books because I'm going to straight trade weight this. It's just good. So I want it in a nice trade for me to read. I should really support it in the comic book stores, but there's certain books that I feel like I'm just going to trade weight it and go. We'll see. I could totally be lying to you and then go to the comic book store this week or next week and find I just have to buy the second issue. It is very good. I really did enjoy it. But like I said, I have to kind of be penny pinching a little bit. Rodriguez plays off certain things that I really, really like and I really appreciate. You just kind of, as I'm flipping through it, I'm just kind of like blazing through it. But he does a lot of storytelling things that are very fun. And along with the colorist, he colored it. Okay, that's why. Along with the colorist, they do some techniques that I like. You could say they're standard, but I don't really see them as much. So he does like this colored line fill. It's kind of like this bluish, purplyish, for the blacks. And that's like usually that's like the flashback. He kind of will do certain things like this. That's cool. And I just kind of broke my rule, right? Like I was saying, it's colored line, but then in the flashback, but then she's kind of like in black hair. But there's cool things that happen where it's like this negative space. And then, when you first glance at it, it's kind of crazy. It gives you this creepy look, which is great, but it also gives you focus on the character itself as she's walking in there. There's composition stuff here that's really great. Like this hand with the key going to the lock is great. It bleeds into her walking in. Just that panel is fantastic. Because there's definitely, if you just want to crank it in, you can just have a panel of this with the regular background, and you can have this panel next. Perfectly fine. Storytelling intact, perfect. But aesthetically, this is great. It kind of goes from the negative space of this. Here's your negative space, and there's a key, and there's a lock. Maybe it was added last minute. I don't know. But it works for me. It works really good. Really fast, simple solution, but storytelling right all in there. Giant door and everything. All this creepiness, the Doctor Strangey kind of trippy colors. Maybe that's what he's pulling on in this magic, in the Sanctum Sanctorium. And, it's all flashback until she wakes up, and here she goes. And now, aesthetically different. And I always like that when it visually divides what's going on in story-wise, right? This is a flashback, and now here you are in reality. She's waking up, she's getting her stuff going on, a good excuse to use one of her magic posters, and she goes for a run. Like a normal person, except there's weird shadow things following her. She's in Vegas, so the bright colors are a perfect fit for this stuff. And then, she can kind of do all this moody lighting that's going on because she's in backstage. And it all just lends itself, like all this lighting changes that are not necessarily color guided, say, right? But in black and white, you can kind of tell, like he goes heavier on blacks. It's lighter here. And I like that. I appreciate that. It has a different look that's not, say, like you would see in movies, right? Like you wouldn't have quite a color fill. It would look different. It would look different in movies. It plays out different in comics. And anyway, so she goes through this whole thing. You get flashbacks. You get this cool, like, off registration color, which is always fun. I never know how to use it or when to use it, because I probably just go to town and start pouring it on everything. And they set up this. I would like to see more of this horror stuff work its way in there. But cool stuff, like here. The colors here. Someone's pointing that way, and Zatanna is in this blue. It's cool. And it's flat. It's all flat colors. I wish I had the guts to do that. I always have to feel like I gotta put a shadow in something. A shadow color. But, Rodriguez definitely picks when to do that. And it works really well. This crazy face under this Cookie Monster mask. I'm not sure. Cookie Monster. This crazy disc mask that has this kind of Miyazaki-ish feel, creepiness. And then, you got like fire-breathing serpent demon underneath that mask. And here's a cool storytelling element. I almost skipped over it. But the crowd goes crazy, and everybody runs out, and then, there's all this stuff going on while it's on fire. Rodriguez chooses to draw from this top view along the border of this crowd running. Very cool. I always appreciate that with storytelling and comics, right? This is just cool. So you definitely get the feel that this crowd is running and going nuts all around them. And you can kind of I like looking at all these little people. Very distinctive, and even like this transition when they're falling from here to here is cool, right? Like it looks like someone's about to get trampled, or they just look like they're also running. And this pileup right here is cool too. I appreciate it a lot because it's not easy drawing crowds running, and it's not easy drawing crowds running. It's just, it like even these faces, it takes some brain power doing this. And I think this is even more so because now you're also including it into the storytelling. Great first issue from Tamaki and Rodriguez. Great setup, great everything. I love it so much. I'm not gonna buy it because I'm gonna wait for trade. We'll see how my self-control is. Great cover by Art Germ, as usual. And a good start to Zatanna Bring the House Down. Or Bring Down the House. Yes. Anyway, that's it for this episode. I am Arvin Bautista. I will see you guys next time on Comix Rant.